Everybody, and welcome to the Superpowered Self-Care. Apologies for the technology and the delay, but I still wanted to go ahead, even if we're not live tonight, and complete this amazing four-part series of wellness and resilience sessions that we've done. I want to encourage you that if you have any questions post this session, please feel free to reach out, ask me questions. You've received all the follow-up emails that have my details, but this is really an opportunity for you to start to have a think about what does self-care look like, feel like, and how can you ignite it into your journey more day to day. I wasn't able to get the PowerPoint link to the video, so I'm going to be sending you that as well. So as we go through it, you'll be able to follow through with the PowerPoint as well on your screen. So firstly, let's take a moment of celebration. Yay! To all of those of you who have finished your exams, and to those of you that still have a week or a little bit longer to go, let us give you some wonderful tips and tools to elevate your self-care. Now, even if you have finished, I want to encourage you to think about how can you keep or sustain or create this self-care toolkit leading into the crazy busy Christmas period and particularly into the new year. We are heading into a brand new decade, and with that comes an opportunity for us all to have a think about who do we want to be, how do we want to feel, how do we want to show up, and what are we role modeling to the next generation and to your potential future clients around self-care and wellness. I see so much carers burnout in the wellness industry, and I myself have been burnt out twice doing this work. And the burnout can come in many different ways, shapes, or form, but it's so important to really start to listen to the signs and the signals of your body. If you haven't been involved in the other 3 webinars, I would invite you to take some self-care and to take some time to watch those as well, to really start looking at what your stress signs and symptoms are. How can you bring mindfulness and meditation and presence into your life more day to day? And what can you do in terms of changing that radio station of your mind to have it tuned into something that is igniting you with greater levels of resilience, energy, and feeling great inside? We're going to talk a lot about kindness today because kindness is one of my most favorite topics and subjects. And often we are so kind, so caring, so giving to others, and we can forget that we need to fill up our own cup also. So off we go. I like to begin with this understanding of asking a question. Have you ever had a New Year's resolution that failed? Oh. As I got into this work 10 years ago, it was that we were at 85% of New Year's resolutions fail. The new research has come out to suggest 95% of New Year's resolutions fail. Now, I don't think that it's because we're doing wrong. I think it's just that we've become so busy, but also we're creating these away goals. And what can happen then when it comes to your self-care is that once you set in motion these commitments, these ideas of what it is that you want to choose to do, there's sometimes a little voice inside that says, yep, I've heard that before. Yep, you've said you'd do that before. And already you start setting yourself up for failure, because what happens is you then create this negative reinforcement to the self-care that you desire the most. So we're going to superpower it along your journey by inviting you to start to, firstly, think about one thing that you can do and do a small amount of that very well. I met this guy recently when I was in Bali, and he was an amazing anxiety coach, and we were sharing stories of our own journey. And he shared with me that at one point he'd set these really big goals for 3 months. And what he found happened was throughout that period in time, he wasn't successful. So his inner critic, his inner doubt, all of that started emerging again. So he thought to himself, what is one thing that I can do and definitely do daily? And it was 5 minutes of handstands, yoga handstands as a practice. So he committed to himself for the next month to do 5 minutes of handstands. And he said in the first week, he just started to notice how his confidence started to grow from the inside. He started to feel better because you start to feel in alignment and integrity with yourself. And then you start to feel better from the inside. Plus, obviously, handstands, great for energy, great for kind of bringing blood flow and everything like that. So he chose something that was simple, was manageable, and was in this short burst I want to invite you to have a think about that as well. So many clients that I work with, when we come to talking about exercise, they think about movement, they think about fitness classes, they think about an hour or 2 hours out of their day for this. What if you just started to think of self-care, of how could you move your body more? Is there a way you could dance like crazy for 5 minutes in a day? Could your self-care be literally 5 minutes laying on the earth doing absolutely nothing, but daydreaming for 5 minutes, drinking more water throughout the day, really starting to think about that one thing that you could ideally do through this busy period leading into the end of the year that will help to fill up your energy cup. We are in such a huge energy deficit, and I think it's because we get so busy, and self-care is the thing that goes to the bottom of the to-do list. And I'm not pretending that I'm not susceptible to this too. However, having had so many moments of burnout and illness over the periods of working in this, what I've realized is no matter what now, my self-care in my mornings are the things that are my priority. To the point that this week, one of my colleagues rang me at 6:30 in the morning to start working on a tender. And I rang him back at 9 and I said, guess what I never do? Answer my phone at 6:30 in the morning to do with work. And he said, agreed. And so we just have to set those boundaries continuously as well. Now, I know a lot of you have children and have kids. So for yourself, it's going to be thinking about where can that 5 or 10 minutes just for you be placed in your day. And yes, 5 or 10 minutes can make a huge amount of difference. There was a woman I was working with in one of the council workshops recently, and she basically chose her thing to do was going to be 15 minutes at lunchtime. She would read her book. She had books by her bedside that every time she looked at them, she felt guilty for not reading them because she really wanted to read them. So she committed to doing that as her thing. She messaged me a week after the workshop and said already her energy levels were heightened. She was starting to feel better. She was reading for even more than 15 minutes in that middle of the day. And also her energy then wanted her to do more of that. But she said she was waking up with more energy. And that time in the middle of the day was best for her because she had young kids. When she got home at night, she was cooking dinner. And so this isn't about finding time. This isn't about getting everything done and then doing it. This is about prioritizing and superpowering your self-care by making it the first thing that you schedule in your week and determining where is it going to fit and suit you the best. When we talk about self-care, I'm going to be touching on something that you can do for 1 minute, 10 minutes, an hour, and a day. So this is like your toolkit, and it could be a variety of things in the 1 minute, the 10 minute, and you could kind of set those in motion. But I want to encourage you to write them down, because when you're stressed, when you're busy, and when that timer goes off for a minute, you may then want to continue, what it is that you're doing, because it takes a lot of energy to think about it. And so what we want to do is we want to set you up for success by you already having the things that you're going to do and literally planning them in and then choosing the time that's most appropriate for you. I'm going to talk about now the learning ladder. Now, some of you may have heard of this before. The learning ladder is basically when we go through stages of learning, this process that we go through in terms of discovery. So unconscious incompetence is when we don't know what we don't know. And when we're in a state of unconscious incompetence, in that place, it can take a little bit of energy, can take a little bit of time, but there's also a feeling of excitement. I'm sure when some of you knew these webinars were coming out, there's this level of excitement of, yay, there's something new that I can discover. There's something new that I'm going to find out and I can action and implement in my life. And then that excitement continues to build when you then go into the next level of the ladder, which is called conscious incompetence. So in conscious incompetence, you start to discover what it is that you don't know. And so if we use the metaphor I like to use of driving a car, in the beginning, before you even got in a car, you didn't know what you had to do. If it was a manual, you didn't know about the gear stick, parallel parking, or anything like that. But there was this excitement to learn, this excitement to try something differently. Well, from myself anyway. Then you get in the car, there's a slight sense of dread. You start to realize all the things that you don't know. At the end of these 4 webinars, I'm sure there's a part of you that's like, there is so much I could be doing. Rather than thinking about all the things you could be doing, We want to choose that one thing so that you can move into conscious competence in this, which is you start to feel and get comfortable with it, knowing that there is going to be resistance to change. There is always resistance at certain levels of going outside our comfort zone, going into new habits and behaviors. And it's now been told and shown and proven that it takes 66 days to change a habit. So if your self-care is a new habit, it's going to take a little bit of time for it to go from conscious competence to unconscious competence. So you're getting in the car, when you start to learn to drive, you have to focus with a lot of energy, a lot of presence. You need to be really checking your mirrors and everywhere. Whereas I now imagine for many of you, you're in unconscious competence, whereas you just drive without even thinking about it. So that's where we want to get to when you're driving your self-care, is that it gets to the point where it's like brushing your teeth. You just do it. It's an automatic reflex. It's an automatic process of you day to day. Excuse me. Like drinking water. And so it becomes this thing that you want to do. A couple years back, I started to do sunrise as my self-care ritual. And it just got to the point where the feeling of it, the excitement of it was the thing that got me out of bed every single morning, because I never regretted doing it. And then it would kind of complete with an ocean swim and a beautiful orgasmic morning almond latte, which is how I start my days. So what happened was it got to the point where it was so exciting. It was so much more exciting to get out of bed and to enjoy the sunrise than it was to stay in bed. And so that's where we want to get to with your self-care, that it's something that juices you up, that is exciting for you, but maybe exciting even in a peaceful way. Maybe it's something that when you do, you feel so calm, you feel so centered, that it's this opportunity then to just desire that feeling even more. For those of you that were in the other webinar, when the Elevate Your Resilience, we were talking a lot about how do you want to feel and how can we bring more of that into it? And self-care is one of the greatest ways that you can. When you look at your self-care, we want to be looking at it in terms of mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually, so that you're looking at those four counterparts of your life and you're saying to yourself, how can I bring a certain level of self-care into it? And some examples might be mentally, what are you saying to yourself day to day? That radio station, what type of self-care have you got in terms of tuning into the right types of radio station that is kind, that is loving? Have you got affirmations up that are really encouraging of you feeling good and well inside of yourself? And really checking in throughout the day, particularly through stressful times and exams, how are you self-caring in the way that you speak to yourself? Emotionally, we look at your mood. Are you being self-caring and self-loving with every single mood that you're in and acknowledging that? Today and last week, I've had a lot of chaos. Cancelled flights, which have meant moved workshops, and just a state that I'm very rarely in. And I started to feel a little bit scattered and a little bit overwhelmed. And so in those moments, self-care is taking a moment out to do some deep breathing. I literally lay down for a few minutes, put my legs up on the wall. I did some breathing to kind of move the energy out. And then I phoned a friend. I sent her a message and I said, you know what? I just need a little pep talk today. So that helped me elevate my mood. And sometimes in those places, it's okay to reach out. Self-care in terms of having a great network of friends around you, and particularly in the work that you're stepping into, having a great pool of practitioners that you can do swaps with and work with is one of the greatest catalysts for change. And it's definitely been one of the greatest strengths in my journey over the last 10 years of doing this, is having people around me that do support me, that elevate me, that celebrate with me. And so having that kind of, we talk about the self-care toolkit, but also having those people around you that really want to lift you up. Then we want to start looking at physically, what do you do with self-care? What is your form of movement? What is the form of eating and hydration? What are you consuming day to day physically in terms of your optic nerves and media and things like that as well? And how could you bring in some physical self-care? Is it 5 minutes of stretching? At the moment, there is so many fires out and about that it's really tough to be outside breathing. So I've kept up my self-care in terms of ocean swimming, but knowing that I've actually just been doing some really gentle stretching in the mornings and some yoga in my apartment because this smoke is really affecting us physically. And so this is where adjusting your self-care sometimes as well, because quite often what can happen is that we can keep going with a certain self-care, and there might be moments in time where a really big sweaty workout is exactly what you need. But if you listen to your body, there might be moments in time where it needs some restful stretching, a walk. And so being really aware that your self-care can also need adjustment periods over the time as well. And then we come to my most favorite self-care, spiritual self-care. A big breath. I teach soul coaching, and as a part of the soul coaching, we do this process called soul journeys. And to me, that is my deepest, greatest spiritual connection. I write from the part of me that's overwhelmed. I write from the part that is feeling scattered, that is feeling out of balance, that is in need of self-care. And I literally will write, what do I need? And start to journal from that place of really connecting deeply with my spirit and my soul. These days we have become so disconnected from the voice inside of ourselves. And I see so much of this in our industry, particularly with these massive influencers out there, that often people are going outside for the answers. One thing to know when it comes to self-care is that everything that you need is already inside of you. All of the answers to what your body needs, what your mood, your mindset, and what your spirit needs is there. It's just that very rarely do we stop long enough to pause and ask ourselves, what do I need in this moment? What is my soul yearning and calling for? And then prioritizing that in your day, in your week, in your month, in your year. So there are these moments of deep spiritual connection. Now, for some of you, it might be prayer. For some of you, it might be church. Whatever is that spiritual connection for you, ensuring that you see it as this opportunity of self-love, of self-care, of self-connection, and that whatever feels right for you. For me, nature is one of my greatest spiritual connections. And so I know that I need to be around it. I know when I go hiking or I go to the beach, there's just this expansion that occurs in terms of how I feel inside. For you, figuring out what is that spiritual self-care. How does it feel? Is it Kirtan music? Is it chanting? Is it prayer? Is it church? Is it going to sound healings? Like, what is that place for you, nature, that really juices you up? And it can be music too. I love festivals and I love dancing. And so that is a spiritual connection in itself as well, where you get physical and mental and emotional at the same time. And one of my biggest, greatest self-care favorites is play. I'm writing a book on play and the advantages of bringing a play mindset and state of being to our lives day to day. And it can be one of our greatest catalysts for change when it comes to self-care, because your brain is 31% more productive in that positive state. So in terms of exams, it's going to help you there. But also I just find there's this like cheeky little childlike curiosity that comes into us when we invite ourselves and give ourselves permission to play for no reason whatsoever. I hope this is still recording. Oh, I hope this is so recording. Sorry about that. The computer went off. Maybe it needed a rest. Maybe it was this message for all of us that sometimes there's moments of reset. When it comes to self-care as well, I really like this metaphor that I know there's some posts going out at the moment around like, well, when you plug in your phone, are you thinking about plugging in and charging up yourself at the same time too? So that can be a great little connection point. Every time you touch your phone, every time you go to scroll on social media, could you set your timer for a couple of minutes and do some self-care in terms of, could you hydrate your body, stretch a little bit, do some breathing, do some mindfulness activities, gratitude, affirmations. The list is endless. And with this endless self-care list, I like to ensure I don't tell people what to do, because I truly believe, firstly, the answers to what you desire and need in self-care is inside of you. But also, most of us hate being told what to do. So I would also invite you to really look at experimenting with your self-care, trying different things, trying different hobbies, and having those scheduled in. I recently, which I think I've mentioned before, enrolled in a NIDA class. I did cabaret and then I did musical theatre. That was self-care to me because it was something outside of work that was really bringing me huge amounts of joy, and it was creativity and it was fun. Another friend has recently invited me to do a pottery class with her. These types of things, though, at certain times, if you're too busy, if you're juggling a million balls, maybe you wouldn't be doing this at exam time, but could you find a time in your year where you prioritize a day to do something that you've always wanted to learn and always wanted to discover, knowing that there will always be something else to do? But when your cup is full, when you're feeling great from the inside out, when you've been in this place of self-care and self-love, everything feels so much easier. So then we're going to touch on this one piece that is super important, which is this understanding that self-care isn't selfish. Everywhere I go, I see women and men putting their priorities at the bottom of the list. I'm not pretending, again, that I haven't or don't do this. However, what I've realized over the years is that as soon as your needs go to the bottom of the list, you end up feeling slightly resentful in what you're giving out. And we can kind of then end up in this space where we're not feeling good inside, and it's this kind of out of integrity with ourselves. So when you step into doing more self-care and treating yourself with so much more kindness and love, inviting you to have a think about how do you feel in terms of guilt levels, where resistance is coming up, and just knowing that it's okay to be loving and accepting of that. There is going to be days where your self-care routine goes totally out the window, but let's have those be the minority rather than the majority of your week day to day, because self-care often takes some slowing down, but then you can go even faster. So I'm going to invite us to do a little self-care meditation at this moment in time. So when you're listening to this, just taking the time to take a deep breath in and out. And if you are anywhere where it's noisy, I would invite you to just close your eyes and turn everything else off if you haven't already. So there's no distractions. And as you close your eyes, start to imagine what it would feel like with a full cup of energy. What will it feel like when every cell of your body is filled with self-care, with self-love, with this knowing that you are worthy and deserving of all of this and so much more? So I invite you to imagine now that you're sitting in a cocoon of light. You can choose whatever color feels right for you. Imagine that it's all the way around you. A meter out the front, out the back, at the top, and you might see it, feel it, or just know it to be true. As you start to take a deep breath in, imagine you're breathing that color into every cell of your body. As you breathe it in, it's letting go of any idea, any stress, any thoughts that are telling you that you don't have time. you're too busy, that there are too many competing priorities. It's like those voices are just disappearing as you say to yourself, today is the day. Today is the day I breathe, I reset. I come into communion with myself, with my spirit, with my soul, with my heart, and remind myself of what it feels like to love in this moment. And as you breathe all of this into your cells, imagine that you are igniting this knowing, this remembering that you matter. Your place on this earth matters. Your energy matters. So you take another deep breath in and out. And you curiously imagine what it would feel like to breathe in self-love, to breathe in self-care, knowing that with a full cup, you have this opportunity to give even more unconditionally to the world, to yourself, and to everyone in it. So you take now another deep breath in and out. And you say to yourself, today is the day that I remind myself I matter. My needs matter. My voice matters. Today is the day that I reset my commitment to me, to loving thyself. You take one more deep breath in and out. And you gently wiggle your toes, and as you wiggle your toes, you remind yourself how grateful you are of your feet, for all the steps that they walk on this earth, for allowing you to live this path, this purpose, to be a part of your family, your community, Endeavour College. You gently roll your shoulders and you just invite any tension to release. You move them back and forwards. You take another deep breath in and out. And you give yourself a gentle hug, just as this reminder of this connection to all that you are, to your body, to your mind, to your heart. And then in your own time, you may want to have a stretch and just opening your eyes. And you may even want to pause the video here and take a moment to just journal. How did it feel to take some time out for you to connect, to meditate, to breathe? And becoming aware of any resistance that came up, any noise, and loving that as well, as a reminder that there will always be a distraction. There will always be something else to do. But every single day you have this moment and this opportunity to decide, how do you want to feel, how do you want to show up, and what is required for you to step into that place. The best thing about self-care is that it is literally contagious in terms of what it brings us energetically. I can tell the days when I am just beaming because I've filled up my cup. I've spent some time in nature. I've laid on the beach. I've been in the ocean. And it's like this glowing from inside out. And that is what happens when we choose the self-care, it supports all of your relationships day to day because you are more compassionate, more present when you're feeling better at the same time too. And it brings this increased energy that can support your sleep also, which is a big one that I know that people work through. Now, you could also, if you have kids and family members, create a self-care toolkit that individually you all have. Or potentially you have one as a family as well. And so there are things that you can do together. I met this woman recently in a workshop, and she works at one of the big banks. She has a 4-year-old, she's a single mother. She was sharing with me that they have no TV, and at night they do art and craft. And I just gave her so much celebration and praise because she works for one of the big banks, long hours, super senior position, and yet every night she chooses this knowing that it's a self-care for her. It's a reset for her and a connection with her son, but also the behaviours that she's instilling, to the point that he was at a birthday party recently and then he stayed at the friends later and they turned the TV on. And he said to them, "I don't watch TV, it's bad for you." And he left the room. And they told her, the parents told her afterwards, and she said it was such a proud moment, which I could just feel it and imagine that, is that this is what happens. We think about what self-care are we role modeling to the next generation, and not from a place of guilt, from a place of often I feel like the easiest thing is to turn on the TV, to turn on Netflix, to do these types of habits and behaviors. Yet, is it the thing that's juicing you up the most? Is it the thing that is increasing your energy the most? If you're cooking dinner, could your family and your kids be helping at the same time too? You're getting that energy, that connection. Now, I totally get it. When you're tired, you're exhausted, and you're juggling a million things, this can seem or feel near impossible, which is why I want to think about what is something you can do small to start. Something in the morning when you wake up, or something in the middle of the day, or something at the end of the day that is going to help to juice up your energy so that you don't feel so tired and exhausted. And if you wanted to start somewhere, I always say sleep, which is supported by water and hydration, which I'm going to have some more of now. And thinking about what you can do in terms of technology. There are so many moments in our day where we could be doing something that is juicing us up and we are on technology. Now, I'm not anti-technology. Yes, there is amazing connections that can be done through it. However, there is also so many opportunities for us to actually just sit, daydream, be outside, be juicing ourselves up in those moments in time. And yes, a 5-minute walk can literally have a huge impact on our energy. A 5-minute dance to a great song. If anyone follows me on Instagram, we do dance challenges. You can join in our Friday dance challenges that we do with friends, and it's this opportunity to just shake the energy, to reset it, particularly at the end of the week when we're feeling tired at the same time too. So I want us to go back now to this thought. And so you might pause the video after this as well and literally write down on a piece of paper 1 minute, 10 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day, and start to brainstorm some ideas of things that you could do. In 1 minute, a glass of water, some deep breathing, some affirmations, a stretch, some stretching, maybe a dance even for a minute. What else? Drawing, colouring in, meditation, laying on the earth, shavasana. They are all things that you could do within 1 minute, maybe 3 minutes even, but setting your timer for them so that you can do this focused intention. Smiling for a minute is one of my most favourite things to do. At HSG, one of our facilitators, Merv, always does the laughter yoga, and laughing for a minute is a great way of increasing your energy. Starting to think about what are the things that you could do for a minute, 10 minutes, and then an hour and a day. And the day one is something that you could schedule in advance, and particularly the hour one as well. But having a think about then in your day and your week where you could do the 1 minute and the 10-minute ones so that they are supporting to increase your energy. So I would invite you to journal this down if you want to pause it now and write what they are so that you have a list prepared. So at your most stressful time, like exams now or when the next exams start and this kind of term starts again back, you have this list prepared and ready so that you know exactly what it is, you know what your commitments are, and it's aligned to how it is that you want to feel. If you want to feel joy, what's something that brings you joy? If you want to feel calm and peaceful, what's something that's going to bring you that? So really aligning it to what it is that you want to feel more, as well as obviously it bringing you energy at the same time too. Now I'm going to touch on the 5 love languages. You can Google this, you can do the free quiz online if you haven't read the book. It is phenomenal in terms of self-care and self-love. So the 5 love languages basically are pitched at the way that we give love, how we want to receive love. So there's words of affirmation, quality time, gift giving, physical touch, and acts of service. What happens often in relationships is that, and particularly with family dynamics, is that kids sometimes don't feel loved because their parents have given them love the way they want to receive it, their love language. Now, whatever your love language is, the trick to this is that often all the work out there is talking about relationships. But I like to flip the switch and say, if your love language is words of affirmation, how can you affirm yourself with your words more often? Changing that radio station, post-it notes up, celebrating yourself day to day, the 3 good things a day, the celebrate your great activity. What can you do to elevate yourself with your words? So that rather than waiting for the rest of the world to love on us, we can also invoke it. Now, if you have a partner, friends, family, definitely share your love language with them as well, because that's even greater ways to elevate it. But most importantly, thinking about what you can do for yourself. Gift giving, flowers. Gift giving is at the bottom of my list, but I assure you when I buy myself flowers and I see them, it just makes me feel good. Quality time. Have you scheduled in time for your self-care, for the things that you love? Time for just things, me time that is just for you. Acts of service. Making sure your life admin is done, that you're doing things that are really important for yourself as well. Physical touch. A massage, hugging yourself every now and then. Maybe it is some movement that has you feeling strong and really confident in your body. The list is endless when it comes to this, but starting to, when you look at your self-care toolkit, aligning it to your love language can really start to elevate it. When I realized that mine was words of affirmation and my inner critic was so loud, what I realized was it was actually depleting my energy day to day. And so you start to realize is then you can start giving yourself love in these ways, and it's going to completely juice up your self-care. And it's like my little elevation that I like to do, and definitely share it with friends at the same time too. So all of these are in the slides, the different ones and the different ways that you can do things as well. So as we finish up tonight, I want to invite you to really do something differently. I want to say obviously thank you for being a part of this webinar series. It brings me so much joy to know that we are supporting you to elevate your energy, your resilience, your mood and mindset, because as potential practitioners, natural health therapists stepping out into the world, if you can build this muscle now, if you can become so dedicated and committed to walking your talk and talking your walk and becoming an embodiment of what it is that you're studying and teaching, you just are going to set yourself up for the hugest success. The number one thing that I see in our industry is burnout. And this burnout comes from over caring, over giving, because we love and have a heart space for what it is that we do. And many of us have left that hard world of corporate to want to support in this way. But what that passion and that purpose does is it can drive us to exhaustion, particularly if you're juggling the priorities of family and relationships and other commitments at the same time too. So I want to invite you to get curious, to go into this place of knowing that you need to prioritize this, to schedule it. And please, most importantly, be kind, loving, compassionate, accepting, and understanding of yourself, for yourself throughout this journey. The world has become so stressful, so inundated with competing priorities and demands and things that will always call for your attention. if you can determine your intention, what it is you desire to feel, who it is that you want to show up as in this world, even as you're studying right now, as a colleague, as a study buddy, as a family member, a parent, a loved one, and then focus your attention on ensuring that you're scheduling time for that, your energy will gently return. It will gently grow, and you will then have this routine in place that you can't not do because it's simply a part of who you are and who you desire to be day to day. I am so excited to be part of Endeavour College and your journey, and I look forward to so many more of these and touching base with all of you next year. Please feel free to reach out if you've got any questions. I spend a lot of time coaching practitioners and people in this space, and I just love to care for the carers because without us, there's no caring. And so please, if something hasn't made sense in our webinars or you've got any questions, because obviously tonight's a video rather than a webinar, please reach out. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that's helped to coordinate these, and have a wonderful Christmas, New Year. If you're watching this post Christmas and New Year, I hope you've had a wonderful one, and wherever you are in your day, in your year, just know that self-care needs to be a priority. Filling up the tank of your body, of your mind, of your spirit, of your energy day to day is what is going to support you to thrive as a wonderful natural health practitioner, facilitator, whatever it is that your desire is. But it's also going to support you through your exams, through your work, through your career with greater ease and grace when you feel so good from the inside out, and knowing that then with that combined with purpose and contribution and starting to focus on this fact that it can't possibly be selfish, because the more energy I have, the more I have to give. And when I realized that many, many years ago, it shifted and changed everything for me. So sending you all huge, huge love. You've totally got this immersion in terms of self-care, mindfulness, meditation. Choose your list, do your toolkit, and then schedule it in every single week, no matter what. Celebrate when you do it, and just love and be kind to yourself and everyone around you. Thank you very much.